Thank you. So, we are truly in a virtual environment. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at the BYP Annual Leadership Conference 2021. We are so excited to welcome you to the first of our Lightning Fireside Chats today. Our session is titled Building Your Career and Your Community, Driving Change and Impact Through Personal Development. And my colleagues and I are here to share our stories, insights, and advice. So I'll kick things off again. My name is Tope Owolabi, and I am an administrative planning and operations partner who oversees groups in EMEA and all of Latin America. I joined Facebook back in 2019 as an executive assistant before transitioning to my current role in January of this year. On top of my core role, I sit on the Black Hat London External Partnerships team, and working on this team has allowed me to continue to develop personally and professionally outside of my core role. And here to chat with me today is the fabulous Julia. I'll let Julia introduce herself again and tell us a little bit about herself and her story.
Thank you so much, Tope. Carl, we love virtual tech issues. I joined Facebook a little over a year ago as a lawyer in our disputes legal team in the EMEA region. So I'm part of the team who handles regulatory inquiries and complex multinational litigation, specifically relating to data privacy. Outside of my exciting core role, I'm incredibly passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion and building inclusive communities. As the Black Women at Facebook London co-lead, I support in the representation, progression, and amplification of the incredibly talented Black women community at Facebook. I also contribute to a number of projects within our legal team with a focus on building inclusive internal community and also externally contributing to a number of projects where we aim to increase access to the legal profession. Tope, I'm going to hand over back to you so we can get started with the Fireside Chat.
Perfect. That's a lot of hats, Julia, just saying. Without further ado, let's get to the questions that we want to explore today. So as we know, the theme of this conference is collaboration is key, which we all know is imperative to bring in any project or initiative to life. But how do we ensure that whilst collaborating, we are also comfortable showing up as our authentic selves? Julia, can you share your experience on how to ensure that there is synergy in collaboration whilst protecting individualist authenticity?
Oh, it's a big question, but I'm going to do my best. So whenever leading, co-leading, or where you're responsible for a project or initiative, I always think it's important to kick things off by finding that common goal and purpose that brings you all together. And that common goal and purpose should really draw on what each person in the group wants to achieve. This is going to help you find that synergy and create a connection with each person in the team and a real sense of belonging. And I think whilst contributing to find that common purpose, people desire to be their most authentic selves because that's when we do our best work. Mm-hmm. However, I think there can always be a concern about doing this safely without incurring any risks. Now, we both know, Tope, that at Facebook, we're encouraged to be our most authentic selves because that is where we do the work that we enjoy, and that ends up being our best work. And I think to get the best out of the people you're working with while fostering a really, collaborative way of working, you should really consider and think about how to create that psychologically safe environment to do that. So a few thoughts that I have on how you can go about creating that environment in a way that allows others to really show up as their most authentic selves whilst collaborating. I think firstly, encourage respectful, active listening. I think genuinely listening to what each person is sharing, taking the time before reacting, and trying not to apply your own personal experiences is really important. I think it could be human nature to jump in and try and relate and show that you have a similar story to tell, but always take a moment before reacting. Secondly, I think creating space for and encouraging open, transparent feedback that can sometimes be really difficult to hear. But I think part of being authentic is having the courage to be completely seen by those around you and to welcome your, honest mistakes in both your own work as well as in the work of others, but doing that in a respectful way. And then thirdly, I think actively encouraging diverse perspectives, helping to make sure that everyone in the room has had an opportunity to contribute. To give an example, I'm part of the Black Women at Leadership, and we all know, you know, Black women are not a monolith. The one thing that brings us all together is our passion and our drive to represent and amplify Black women at Facebook. But there's no one singular right way to do that. So in our meetings, we share, we discuss, you know, we encourage and we give feedback. And then we also, you know, to help each other lean into how it is that we each want to achieve that goal, whether that's building internal community or focusing on recruitment or career progression. So there are a few of my thoughts there, but I'd love to hear your own experiences, Tope. Can you share your experience on how to ensure that there is synergy in collaboration whilst protecting individualist authenticity?
Of course. I was busy actively listening to what you were saying and mentally taking notes as well. There were some gems dropped in that answer. As you mentioned, Facebook is a company where we are encouraged to bring our authentic self to work. And it is valued and it's an expectation. And this is one of the many ways that we ensure that we have a culture where diverse perspectives are welcome and celebrated. For me, that's half the battle. When you are encouraged to be your authentic self, you're free to be your true self or a version of it. And ultimately, that creates an environment where people are comfortable and able to thrive. So while collaborating with others, I aim to remain true to myself at all times to guarantee that I am seen and heard. In my previous role as an executive assistant, I was accustomed to working with and collaborating with various individuals at all levels. So while I'm able to adapt to people's working styles, for example, it's important to communicate effectively, recognize your strengths, your particular expertise, what you bring to the table, and how that fits in with and allows you to produce your best work. Authenticity and trust also go hand in hand, right? So when people view you as authentic, then they're more likely to trust you. And the best way that I ensure that there's synergy in collaboration is just by ensuring that we all have the same end goal, like you said. For example, if I'm working on a project, I find it's imperative for us to agree on what the purpose or the mission is and what the outcome will be. So from the start, we have agreed on a common goal that ultimately we are all working towards. At Facebook, we champion doing your best work, and the company recognizes that this happens when it's work that you truly enjoy. This shared goal or purpose will be what drives each of us to create, contribute, and collaborate effectively. So protecting individualist authenticity just means being honest and open to individual diverse perspectives as well as feedback. My work on the Black Hat London External Partnerships workstream is a perfect example. Working cross-functionally with fantastic individuals from different areas of the company. Each of us has a different role and a different career journey. But as a work stream, we are passionate about amplifying underrepresented voices, building internal community at Facebook, and bringing external communities into Facebook to amplify their work. That was a lot. That was a lot, but it was also a really, really big question, right? So I would love to hear the audience and their experience on authenticity and showing up as our authentic self. So please do comment in the chat if you're out there. We'd love to hear your thoughts. With that, I'll move on to the next question. Julia, you ready?
I'm ready.
Perfect. What advice would you give to anyone looking to build similar initiatives in their organizations or in their communities?
Great question. Another one. I'm going to repeat myself, and we've both touched on this already, but I think the first most important question to ask yourself is the why. You know, what's the common purpose and goal for the project or initiative that's bringing you all together? You can use this as your compass to help keep everybody on track and aim for that same destination. And to use that same metaphor, although you might have the same destination, there's no one right journey to get there, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's when you consider your how, like how you're going to do it. And I would invite as many suggestions and ideas from everybody involved. This is where you can really help to encourage authenticity by allowing people to lean into their suggestions and their passions, because this is where they're going to bring their best work, which Tope, you've talked about earlier, which is what we're encouraged to do at Facebook. Mm-hmm. And all of these hows, all of these brilliant suggestions and ideas that you're getting from your team, that's what's going to form your strategy to help you get to that destination. And as part of your strategy, I'd also say consider, what are your both short-term and long-term goals that you want to achieve? And then think about, how do you want to scale that project so that, it's undoubtedly going to be a success, but how do you want it to continue to grow long after you and your team have moved on? And then to help bring your strategy to life and to scale the project, I also think it's incredibly important to identify who your stakeholders are. I think other than your primary most important stakeholder, which is going to be your community that you're looking to serve and engage, I think you should also consider who your internal and external stakeholders. That's where your relationship building is going to be really, really key. And if you can go to those people with your why and your how ready to go, then I think you're already on the path to success. But before I hand over to Tope, we're also really keen to hear from everybody that's listening in. What key learnings have you had from building similar initiatives? And please do include them in the comments for us to have a read through. But Tope, over to you. I'd love to hear from you. What advice have you got for building these initiatives?
I mean, I completely agree with the points that you've just shared. So I guess I'll just build on those. Like you said, it's all about strategy and relationship building. These go a long way. So my advice would be to ask yourself the why you are building these initiatives. As you mentioned, Julia, make sure you have the why as well as a purpose that will drive the work that you're doing. I think too often people build these initiatives or participate to tick a box, right? So be prepared to truly serve your community as opposed to being self-serving.
Completely agree, 100%. I think it's really easy to lose sight of the community that you're looking to serve and engaging with them regularly. And talking about relationship building with your community or internal and external stakeholders that you need to bring on the journey with you. Tope, can you share more on how you bring people on the journey with you to create impact whilst also driving change? What advice would you give for that particular aspect?
So, as mentioned previously, I joined Facebook 2.5 years ago. So I know how important it is to feel like I belong. And the Black Hat community has been an integral part of this. For me, bringing people on the journey is all about trust. So being authentic, as we were talking about, and genuine. Also having a sense of community. As much as possible. And because of my experience, I ensure that people feel a sense of inclusion and that they have some sense of belonging. So whether that's introducing them to the people in my networks or suggesting individuals they should connect with, what better way for people to start feeling as though they are part of a community? This can help to drive change because when individuals feel invested, they will eventually want to help foster an environment where others that precede them have similar positive experiences. It's a no-brainer. So where possible, we should also aim to empower, elevate, and amplify others. But again, back at you, Julia, what would you say is how you bring people on the journey to create impact whilst also driving change? What's your advice?
I'd say that I'm a big believer in the power of storytelling. I think everyone has a unique story to tell. And by sharing, we build understanding, we're sharing knowledge, and ultimately building empathy. I like to think of it, though, as sharing with boundaries and with the intention of empowering others, right? With the knowledge of your own unique, different perspective and experience that they may not have come across before. So to kind of bring this to life a little bit, I thought I'd share my own personal example, and that's my entry into the legal profession, because this wasn't as straightforward as I would have liked or I imagined it would have been having graduated from university. But it's part of the reason why I'm so passionate now about increasing access to the legal profession for everyone. And through sharing my own story, whether that's through one-on-one mentoring or through other important and exciting initiatives, both at Facebook and externally to Facebook, I really hope to inspire and bring others along on that journey with me in sharing in that vision to help change what the future of the law looks like.
I love that. That's powerful because we definitely shouldn't underestimate the power of stories. And I love yours.
I love yours. And thinking about the power of stories and, I've been lucky enough to work alongside you, Tope, and get to know you the last year that I've been at Facebook. And I can, sharing spaces with you where you bring your most authentic self. And we've talked about authenticity quite a lot already. And it's a term that comes up a lot. I think it'd be really great to hear from you about your own experiences on how you ensure that you show up as your authentic self at work, and how you contribute to building a workplace where others, like me, can feel that they can do the same as well.
Like you said, authenticity is a term we throw around a lot, all the time. For me, there's a quote that says, "To shine your brightest light is to be who you truly are." And that says it all. I previously touched on the ways that I contribute to building a workplace where others feel they can be their authentic self. So I'll just add that the best way to be your authentic self is to be you. And that is how I always show up. Remember that you are the best author for yourself. That's my advice. What do you have for us, Julia?
I mean, that was like a mic drop answer. I don't really know how to top that. But I would just add that to allow, to show up as your most authentic self, I think it's really important to take the time to get to know yourself, right? And accept all the different aspects of your identity and all the different layers that make you who you are and make up your own unique story that you can then be the author of, to steal your incredible line, Tope. I think that, to end on this point, it can be incredibly difficult to move forward if you don't know where you've come from. And on that note, I just wanted to say a huge, huge thank you for having us both here today. We've really, really enjoyed this conversation. Tope, thank you so much for this chat. We're now going to hand over to our colleagues Megan Thomas and Uthman Mohammed. But thank you again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, Tope and Julia. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. Nice to see you guys again. Yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you so much to Tope and Julia for that really inspiring talk. That was really insightful. So thank you for that. I'm Megan Thomas.
I'm Uthman Mohammed.
Yeah, and let's get straight into it. So in this session, we'll be looking at personal development. So just a little bit about myself. I'm Megan Thomas. I'm a public policy associate manager in the UK policy team at Facebook. My work revolves around landing Facebook's key messaging with a parliamentary audience. So in my role, I speak to UK government, MPs, civil servants, regulators on a wide range of different policy issues, ranging from supporting the government with their efforts to tackle COVID, to MP safety, to upcoming legislation like the Online Safety Bill, and how small businesses can use our platforms to grow and reach new audiences. I've been at Facebook for just over a year, and it's been a really exciting and great year. Before that, I worked at Channel 4 in the corporate affairs team there, where I was also elected chair of The Collective, which was Channel 4's employee resource group for people of colour. In that position, I helped devise initiatives and strategy for the recruitment, culture, progression and retention of Black and minority ethnic employees, working closely with senior leadership to do that. At Facebook, in a slightly more informal capacity, I'm still really passionate about furthering the lived experience of Black employees, and I'm an active member of Black At and Black Women At that Julia runs those two resource groups. Uthman, tell me a bit about what you do and about yourself.
Oh yeah, so thank you, Megan. I just want to part there quickly. I'm really excited to be here, so thank you as well to BYP. I'm Uthman Mohammed. I've been at Facebook for just over 2.5 years, working as an enterprise support tech. And the role involves supporting internal staff with their IT issues and needs. We're really there to enhance and optimize the user experience through working on various projects and getting involved with different teams around the organization. What led me to here? I've been in IT for 5.5 years and having started my career at Tate Gallery, I was actually still a uni graduate at that time, and I had to take annual leave to take my final exam and then head back to work the very next day. So that was very sort of a lucky position that I was in to have a job, and before I even graduated. And I was there on the service desk, which is like the first step into IT. After 2.5 years, I then moved on to the finance industry in investment banking with a bank called Macquarie. And I was literally there for a short stint of 6 months at the bank. And after like 5, 6 months, I got an email from a Facebook recruiter. And after an intense interview process, the rest was history. And that's it from me, yeah.
That's really exciting, like work history. So thanks for sharing that. Well, I guess without further ado, let's get on to the questions that we want to explore today. So I'm really interested to kind of hear your opinion. So feedback, free voice, and collaboration is an integral part of the Facebook ethos. And we know it's the cornerstone for any company to be successful. But we need to ensure the filtration of this ethos to everyday life. And we know that for the Black community, this can be even more complicated. Can you share your thoughts on how at an individual level you can make change, develop yourself and your organization?
Okay, yeah, there's quite a few points in that question. And I think I'll start off with, as I've previously mentioned, I've worked in 3 different industries, one being the arts, one in investment banking, and now I'm in tech. So I've had 3 different experiences where a company's culture, values, and system plays a key role in the daily life of a minority employee, and on how I sort of manage my personal development in order to get to where I want to be. And I strongly feel tech industry, or more specifically Facebook, do it best. Facebook strongly encourages openness. They encourage creativity and honesty. And as a Black employee, it really makes me feel a sense of suitability, a sense of belonging, as you feel like most people are there to support you and help you grow. And that is set in the company's ethos. And it takes me back. And I remember when I first started and had my orientation at Facebook, I'd hear these mantras. And you may have heard it in the previous Fireside Chat, one or two of you. But one of the mantras was, "This is your company now." Another one was, "Bring your authentic self to work." And no, but nothing at Facebook is somebody else's problem. And these words, they really have been instilled in the people, where everyone generally commits to making it a happy place to work. Everyone is driven to make positive change happen, and everyone's generally supportive, whether it's in your direct team or a different org. And that sort of, helped my own personal development. It's helped me realize what my strengths are and where I can add value. And it's really and truly the kind of space that's suitable for anyone. And from the Black perspective in particular, these values really encompasses with that natural ambition we have to go further. It makes it a place where you can be relaxed about looking a certain way, and your voice is there to be heard because it really is your company. And honestly, this strong set of foundations really allows you to focus on not just how, but where you can bring about change and develop yourself. And that's what I really appreciate about the environment that I'm in. I did see in the comments earlier that some people said they haven't had the opportunity to be in environments such as this, but it's down to your own personal development and drive. And yeah, this is what we're here to talk about today. And yeah, on the flip side of that, I'd really love to hear what your experience is, Megan.
Yeah, and I'd say I completely agree with everything you've just said. And to those who are watching, it's great to kind of get your comments on this too, and if you can share your experience, that's amazing. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with your kind of views on having a bit of a collective responsibility here and kind of making your own path too. I think that everybody has the power to make some level of difference, even at an individual level. But I definitely say that some organizations facilitate this much better than others. It's a kind of societal issue. I think I'm quite lucky that I've worked for 2 organizations that do kind of genuinely champion being your authentic self and like recognize the importance of having a diverse business. And you know, I mean, obviously every organization has its issues, but I think I've been quite lucky that, you know, at least senior leadership are sort of listening to this and in the organizations that I've sort of worked in. I think the first step is probably, or in my opinion, is to kind of look for opportunities to develop yourself. I think in order to have resilience and make change, it's really important that you understand your own challenges faced in work and then sort of like empathize with yourself in that regard. For me, I think a really helpful way that I've done this is by scoping out different mentors and allies. Like, I can't stress enough for me how important mentors have been, particularly if you can find those who may have trodden like a similar path or in a similar role. You can like really help you navigate your organization. I think especially in Facebook, and I've gone from, you know, a relatively small British institution to a massive global company, and for me it's been like really important to like meet other people in the company. So I try and like attend different networking events and building connections and finding like those people who might champion you. I work in policy, and it's really rare to see people with a similar life experience or like background to me, particularly Black women. It's pretty much non-existent. I'd say in terms of that kind of like developing your organization piece, in my role chairing the collective at Channel 4, I was in a bit of a unique position where I was able to like directly hold senior management to account in terms of considering the progression of the Black community in the organization or what is being reflected about the Black community on screen. And I like pushed leadership quite hard in this sort of regard. And I worked on developing a leadership program specifically for Black staff, which was amazing. And then also in my kind of policy role, I've looked for opportunities where I might be able to empower the Black community, whether that's organising parliamentary events specifically focused to champion like the Black experience, or looking at policies which impact Black people from like a content policy point of view at Facebook. But I do realise that not everyone has the flexibility to really shape the kind of work they engage in day to day. So I would say, like, you know, are there other ways and avenues you might be able to make an impact in your organization? Can you like join a resource group? And if those don't exist, can you set one up? Or are there like something similar in your industry that you might be able to join? I'd also say, you know, for me personally, it's really important that I'm supporting the next generation of like young people who are looking to get into either the industry or into policy. I try and consider ways where I might be able to give back to those who might not have the same structured background or access that I've been lucky to have. And like an example of this is like during the pandemic, I had an influx of messages on LinkedIn from like young Black women and other minority ethnic women who wanted to have a chat about their career. So I'd say, you know, are there opportunities where you might be able to do that? Uthman, you've come off screen for me. I hope you're still there.
Yep, still here.
Okay, I can't see you, but I'm hoping that might just be me. But moving on to my next question, I wanted to know, so we know that often when it comes to building community and an inclusive workplace, it's often something that's driven internally. And I was hoping that you might be able to share your experience of how you work towards ensuring that everyone has a safe space to come together. And what advice would you give to people who are trying to do this in their own organizations? And how can you make sure that the burden doesn't just fall on like the Black community or people of color?
That has quite a few points to tackle in there, and definitely to build internal community, I feel you'd have to want that, to have that intention from within. So, for example, my values prior to joining Facebook was very much in line with building internal community. You know, like in my household, amongst my friends, I'm just trying to, you know, be that person to want to bring everyone together and make sure everyone's sort of having a good time, enjoying and being progressive. How that translates in the workplace, where you have different people with different values, beliefs, and just different systems in what makes them them. Is very much a challenge in itself. And in order to do that, I think you mentioned previously there in your previous role, there was a moment where you had to be brave in order to, challenge members in your team to bring about change. And that's exactly what it takes. That's exactly what it takes. And my advice would definitely be to get involved and get stuck in. If you do want to build that community and an inclusive workplace, it's definitely down to the individuals that sort of share that same ambition, share that same passion, to get involved, get stuck in, and make things happen. Because there's a lot of challenges out there that I'd say minorities face externally, like outside your workplace. It's like I mentioned before, it's like a whole different world. And because of that, you're living in two realities, and regardless of what you do outside of the workplace, it can impact you inside of the workplace. And that's why it's important to focus our efforts on building community. And this is exactly why we do these things. And for me, I can speak on my part, what I've sort of done to enable this. I'm part of the community and culture work stream within the Black Hat Facebook resource group. And we work on bringing the internal community together by hosting fun and exciting events, which has, of course, had a change in theme since the pandemic, as you can imagine. And most things, exactly. And most things are virtual now. But it did highlight the importance even more to get involved and make sure that, these events that we're creating really reach people in their spaces. Because not everyone is sort of in an office is supposed to be an ideal environment for you to work and focus. And sometimes as well, get your mind off it, get your mind off work. So in order to increase your productivity. So that all goes, into how we plan and prepare our sessions. It's really it's part of a work stream that we sort of focus on celebrating the new joiners, because we look at ways, creating ways to avoid the imposter phenomenon. Because you sort of don't want to be joining a company and just feeling like you're not belonging. That's the first thing that you want when you join somewhere new. You just want to feel that sense of belonging. And like as I said, you have to engage with your community, as I've mentioned, and find people that share the same ambitions and really build on those foundations to make your environment one that is inclusive, one that is diverse, and one that's really progressive. And that's what I have to share. What's your thoughts, Megan?
Yeah, I mean, I think I completely agree and echo everything that you've just said there. I think, the events that you kind of put on to support, for me personally, to support new joiners is super important. I mean, as somebody who joined Facebook about like a new organization during COVID, when I was entirely working from home and not knowing what the kind of diversity of an organization might look like, but also trying to find my tribe within Facebook. It's so valuable and important to have, events and sessions where you can actually meet other people who might have a kind of similar experience or background to you, and just be more immersed in the Black community. I think what you just said about imposter syndrome, like that is a real thing. And especially when you're joining a company full of high achievers, I guess, like Facebook, but I think within any organization, having those support structures are so important, and that kind of community to be able to speak to and lean on and be able to be your authentic selves within some kind of safe environment. I think that's amazing. Again, for me, I think thinking back to in my position when I was leading a resource group and when I was kind of chairing that, I also kind of appreciated the importance of having these safe spaces for staff where they can be their authentic selves. And it's great to have an opportunity where you can kind of come together, even within like a virtual environment. So I used to be part of a fortnightly meeting where all the members of the ERG would sort of like sit down and discuss, whether we'd like plan events or talk about what was kind of going up on screen, or where, what progression we might want for the community specifically, that we might be able to speak to HR about. I'd say that Facebook does this like incredibly well too. So I know that the work stream that you spoke about within your resource group, you have like monthly meetings to celebrate new joiners, Thirsty Thursdays, like that's amazing. I think Facebook's great, like in terms of like leveraging the platform. So we have like chat groups, like a Black at chat group. There's like a Black women at chat group. So that's sort of great to be able to have that kind of informal communication back and forth. I mean, one thing that I thought was quite unique, but I found really valuable, was the family circle groups that Facebook has. And I'm actually in one with Julia and Tope, who spoke earlier. And it's like a really small group of Black women, and we come together and we will kind of speak about our experience and have our kind of support structure for each other. And to have an organization that facilitates something like that, I think is great and really important. So, for me, I think it's like finding events or initiatives where the community can come together, and like what bottom up initiatives that you can get involved in, where you can share your experience, is really important. I think one thing that I would kind of stress and say is that it's so it's great that, the Black community can come together and build these bottom up initiatives because they believe it's important to do so. But it's really important to get buy-in from leadership when it comes to progressing the Black community within any organization. I think really the power to like either dismantle racism or to make real change is in the hands of ultimately like those who have power. And we need to kind of build that shared understanding outside of those within like a resource group, or I guess, you don't want to just preach to the choir. So I think, if you're able to speak to your HR teams, get funding, get budget, if you're going to set up like a group like that, that's so important. I'd also say all too often, like ERGs are kind of spun up with no clear guidelines about what's expected from them or their potential leads. And, it's not about delivering an organization's like diversity and inclusion strategy. So I think these are all things that you sort of need to like consider. But yeah, no, that was super insightful. And also really interested to hear what like the other people on this call might think about that.
I think that was nice and honest from you. Like, we can do so much, but it also requires effort from, above. And without that, there's really only so much that we can do. So I really appreciate that honesty and the realness about what you mentioned there.
No, thank you. So I guess just one last point to question I have. So do you have like a piece of advice, or can you tell me about a time where you saw an opportunity to transform something into real change and how you might have approached it?
Okay, I think I'll go for the advice on this one, and I'd say it's a very simple one from me, and it's be and stay passionate, honestly, because I feel like that's what gets you to keep going, keep moving towards that objective that you set yourself. You find the spark within you, and that's it. You just take it away. Personal development is a journey, and within that, the passion inside of you, no matter what your purpose is, it will allow you to strive to achieve it. And using an example from myself, I'm not in a position of leadership where I can influence key decisions, but I do see a pathway towards that. And it's in my passion. My passion is the one thing that will see me through. Once I get there, I realign my goals, and I make sure that I stay passionate in terms of trying to achieve something meaningful. And this is all part of that personal development. You know, if you don't have the passion, you're really not gonna, you know, have that will to want to make change happen. So yeah, nice and simple from me. It's be passionate. Yeah, and
Look,
yeah,
I totally agree with that. I echo that. It's great to be passionate.
Thank you. I would like to flip it on you though, and give you the option as well. So one piece of advice or an example of you transforming something into real change.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree with you. I think what you've said earlier, like working as a collective and being passionate, I think those are two really important pieces of advice. So I would echo those as well. I guess in terms of like an opportunity where I've tried to, you know, transform something into real change, I'll use like a Facebook example of something that I've like worked on recently, which I was really proud of. So, you know, Facebook, obviously, it's a global platform. It needs to represent everybody that uses it. And like that includes like the Black British community. You know, it's not, you need, I think it's important that Facebook, you know, recognizes, which it really does, that it represents like a wide variety of like different people. And that's why it's great that we have resource groups and stuff within the organization. While at Facebook, I don't have like a formal role as part of a network group. But one thing that I really push for in my kind of day job was to facilitate a series of conversations with different UK community organisations, and our Vice President for Europe, Middle East and Africa, Nicola Mendelssohn, and having her speak to various different community groups to ensure like fairness amongst different religious and minority groups, and support like engagement with key organisations who are really looking to make change in like the UK. And last year we did a like roundtable with some leading Black community like NGOs. And in that session, you know, it was like a policy focused session. So we could, as a platform, really understand the experiences that the Black community was having on our platform, particularly after the fallout of like Black Lives Matter last year. And then like having someone really senior from the organization hear more about what we might, you know, need to do as an organization going forward. So that was like a really amazing series of sessions that I was like really lucky to be part of.
That's amazing. That sounds like it's only been, you know, a short amount of time for you here at Facebook. You mentioned like almost a year, and you know, being able to, you know, drive that sort of change, I feel honestly it's something to be proud of, and the journey doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. And what is it that we speak about on Facebook? You know, the journey is 1% complete.
Exactly.
And you know, it's never ending. It's a never ending journey, and we just want to see ourselves through each step and take it from there. We review what we've achieved and keep moving from there. And
I couldn't agree more. I can agree more. Well, thank you so much, Uthman, and thanks to everyone who's listening. That's it. So if like Julia and Tope might want to kind of come back on screen, but thanks for like joining all of us at the BYP Annual Leadership Conference. We hope you enjoyed our sessions. At Facebook, our mission is to build community and bring the world closer together, and that doesn't feel, or has never felt as important as it kind of does now. If you're interested in hearing more about our people, culture and opportunities, do visit our virtual booth to chat with our teams to learn more. We hope you take something meaningful from today's conversation and feel fired up to go back out there and create proactive change. Thank you to BYP for having us as well.
Thank you so much, everyone.